Hello and welcome to It's All a Little Weird, the podcast where we discuss all sorts of weird things going on. And in today's episode, we're going to be covering something that I've wanted to cover for quite a while. We're going to be looking at Now, before I get into what we're going to cover, I actually have to be really careful with this one, because it'd be very easy for me to just show my disbeliefs so openly, but we're going to discuss flat Earth. Now, when it comes down to flat Earth, there is a lot of things to take into consideration with this. Now, one of the things that really draws me towards flat Earth is the way that my brain works. Obviously, you should be able to pick this up so far, but the way that my brain works is I want to believe. There are certain things that I want to believe, and when it comes down to cult, science fiction, ghosts, phenomenons, cryptozoology, I want to believe. Even UFOs and things like that, I want to believe. It's not that I want to disbelieve or disprove or debunk a lot of the time. I actually want to believe, but there's a lot of things in there that just go against everything. Now, this is one that sort of really, really baffles me, because I wanted to go into this with a very open mind. I wanted to look at this with a very open mind, but there's a lot of scientific evidence that goes completely against it. Now, the same thing happens with flat Earth as what happens with a lot of things. There's a lot of evidence for and a lot of evidence against. And to be fair, with some of the believers in flat Earth, I can almost understand what they're on about. But before we get into all that, please do me a favour. If you find yourself liking this, please hit that like button, and also let me know what you think down in the comments, because this is one that I really want to get into discussion with. I did actually post a poll on the community tab of the channel just to find out what people's beliefs were. So if you haven't already, head over to the community tab and press your choice on that. And we're going to dive into this. We're going to talk about the Flat Earth Society and a load of other things. So buckle yourself in, get yourself comfortable, and let's see what we think. So I suppose we can't get into the idea of flat Earth without first sort of discussing the origins of the flat Earth theory. Now, flat Earth theory is exactly what it states. It's a theory. Now, this goes off old sort of communications, old pamphlets and things like that. So in the modern era of pseudoscience, belief in flat Earth originated with the English writer Samuel Rowbotham with the 1849 pamphlet Zetetic Astronomy. Lady Elizabeth Blunt established the Universal Zetetic Society in 1893, which published these journals. In 1956, Samuel Sheldon set up the International Flat Earth Research Society, better known today as the Flat Earth Society, in Dover, here in England, as a direct descendant of the Universal Society. Now, their beliefs was that some great philosophers from time go by, such as Homer and Hesiod, described the world as a disc, and that basically if they wanted to travel across the world, then they would have to travel the disc. Now, this was obviously before modern science came in. This is before modern mapping came in and things like that. Sonar, satellites, and everything else that have obviously gone towards proving that the world is spherical. So back in the day, I can actually halfway understand the ideology that the world is flat. Now, when we talk about the flat Earth theory in scientific fact, this is where the theory sort of falls flat. We can go against it. We can challenge the ideology that the world is flat. But when we have scientific proof, such as satellite imaging, such as aeroplanes, such as boats going over the horizon, it kind of puts to bed the theory that the world is flat. Now, the thing that really sort of drove my mind about this was actually the conspiracy theory side of it, because obviously whenever we take a scientific challenge such as flat Earth, there's always going to be some comeuppance. It doesn't matter what that theory is. Einstein had his own sort of competitors when trying to work out the theory of relativity and things like that. So there's always going to be some kind of comeuppance, some kind of challenge to your theory. And that's what makes science great, because Throughout the world, we have that. We have one person with one idea, we have another person with an educated challenge. But this is where Flat Earth goes a little bit mad, because we then move into conspiracy. Now, the conspiracy is obviously that we have NASA and we have people like Google that are actually going against us, that are trying to tell us that the world is spherical when really the world is flat. Now, I don't know your beliefs, the wonderful listeners who are listening to this, but I, for one, believe in satellites. I, for one, believe in science. So if I've always said throughout all of these podcasts that if someone was to come forward and say this is scientific evidence that something is real, then my mind is instantly switched. Because we have proof. We have proof. And that's the perfect analogy of someone with an open mind. We don't stick to our guns so much. And that's kind of where this sort of falls. Now let's start breaking down some of the ideas that the Flat Earthers, the so-called Flat Earth Society, I don't mean so-called as in they're so-called, they're actually called the Flat Earth Society, actually believe. And let me try and put into your mind what they see the globe as we know it, how they see it. So depending on who you listen to, depends on how they state it, but it is a flat disc. Now in the middle of the flat disc is a landmass. Now, this landmass is the continents and the areas that we know. Surrounding that is nothing but ocean. Now, if we go out further to what we would perceive as over the horizon, they perceive as a wall. Now, this is a wall of ice. Now, this is where sort of the conspiracy theory starts to fall into place a little bit more, because on the outer rim of this oceanic landscape that is surrounding this landmass is a wall of ice. Now, this wall of ice has been contested to be Antarctica, and one of the arguments for flat earthers is that no one's ever been truly to Antarctica, because if they had, they would have gone to the ice wall. Now, I did read somewhere that they are honestly considering the fact that if you pay the £10,000 to fly out to the wall, that you are then reprogrammed to believe that you have been to Antarctica, and that is what part of your travel fee is used for. Now, this sort of puts a spin on their belief that if you were to travel to the end of the world, you wouldn't just fall off, because there is a giant wall that encounters the whole circumference of the flat Earth disk. Now, that's the easy bit. To be honest with you, if science fact came out and stated that is how the world is, it's not incredibly difficult to portray that into thought. Obviously, the challenges that come up against that are flight, circumnavigating the globe, and all these other wonderful things. But just put yourself in those shoes for 1 minute. Try and look down and think of the teachings that we've been told about the world being round actually being flat, and that we are encompassed by an ice wall. Now, the way that this kind of falls flat is when they talk about the sun and the moon, and obviously the day cycles and things like that come with it. So, in their ideology, the sun and the moon are above us, and what they do is they sit separate across from each other, and they circumnavigate the landmass that's in the middle. And as they do that, that's how they explain the day and night cycles. Now, just like many people before me has put a video out there on the flat earth theory, the first place that this actually falls flat is when we start talking about lunar eclipses and shadows of the moon, and the way that the moon will pass in front of the sun and we will end up with that lunar eclipse. Now, one of the biggest weapons that we've used as skeptics is video evidence of a lunar eclipse. They have no retort for this. Flat Earth have no retort for this. I've tried to search long and hard to try and find this, but it's nowhere to be found. So one of the efforts that the Flat Earth sort of community tried to do to try and emphasize this idea of flat Earth was by a guy called Mike Hughes. Now, Mike Hughes is a daredevil and a flat Earth conspiracy theorist, and he used a home-built, crude rocket in an attempt to see for himself if the Earth is flat. On the 24th of March 2018, he made a rocket out of scrap metal, which estimated to cost $20,000. And using a mobile home as a custom launch pad, managed to climb 1,875 feet, 572 meters above the Earth, with Hughes inside, and ended up with a hard landing. But with parachutes successfully deploying, the amateur rocketeer was not seriously injured and remained firm in his flat Earth beliefs. Now, one of the big things about this is the $20,000 that this man paid could have paid for a flight that would have got him above 1,900 feet. We know this. 40,000 feet would have been able to get there. So why would you go out there and crowdfund? This was actually crowdfunded as well, to only get 1,900 feet. He claimed that real evidence will come with larger rockets. Hughes was killed in an accident on the 22nd of February 2020 when piloting a flight of his steam-powered rocket in a further attempt to prove the Earth was flat. The accident was caused by an early deployment and separation of the return parachute on the vehicle. The rocket impacted after falling from an altitude of several hundred feet. Hughes was killed instantly. After Hughes' death, his public relations representative, Darren Schuster, stated that Hughes didn't believe in flat Earth and that it was a PR stunt to get publicity. While Michael Lynn, who worked on the documentary Rocket Man, Mad Mike's Mission to Prove Flat Earth, said that Hughes' belief was apparently genuine. Now, again, if this guy was genuine, one of the other comeuppances against flat Earth theory is that we have aeroplanes, and aeroplanes circle rather than circumnavigate. Now, one of the conspiracy theories towards the aeroplanes is that obviously the windows are convex. Now, obviously we have to have a certain curvature because of the pressure in the fuselage. It has to have a small amount of pressure built up in the fuselage. If these were clear planes of glass, if these were just standard glass that are in an aeroplane and didn't have that curvature and didn't have that design to be aerodynamic, then they would shatter under the pressure, not only from the inside of the cabin, but from the outside of the cabin as well. So that kind of goes against it. But he believed, and a lot of other people believe, that if you go up, then it's an optical illusion, the way that the window shows an horizon. So that was an amateur rocketeer and a daredevil that decided to go out there and prove it. But what for me is the beliefs of Joe Everyman. Joe Everyman, who walks around every single day believing that they can see the flat Earth. Now, a lot of the beliefs of the Flat Earth Society are based solely on sensors, and that's what they want you to use. They want you to use your sight, and they want you to use your vision and your brain and how your brain perceives the world. And great, right? I'm all for this. Use your senses. Senses can be tricked. We know that. Whether it be sound or sight, it can be tricked. The way that the brain interprets shapes, we see faces in everything. So we know for certain that the senses can be broken, they can be tweaked, and they can be maneuvered in a way to suit the way that we want to think. Now, I know that this is a commonplace theory for a lot of people to think, but honestly, stand at the top of the mountain, look out, why can't you see everything? Like, why can't you see as far as your eyes can strain to see? That's the easiest way to put that one to bed, because we don't. If you look from something high, you can actually see a minor curvature. If you watch a boat crossing the ocean, it goes bottom up. It goes across the horizon and it starts to envelope the world. It starts to sink as the horizon shows. So that kind of puts to bed the ideas that you use your brain. We know that your senses can be tricked. I've just stated that. So why not use products? Why not use scientific products that are going to help us discern or prove the flat Earth. Now, that was one of the reasons that Mike Hughes didn't use an aeroplane, because a lot of the flat earthers would not have used that evidence. They would not have believed, because they believe in the higher conspiracy theory of flat Earth. And we're going to go into that now. Now, obviously, this higher conspiracy theory starts on the way that every conspiracy theory works. We are being lied to. That's the be-all and end-all of it. We're being lied to. So one of the firm beliefs is that NASA lie to us on a daily basis, saying that they are up there watching the world and the world is a sphere. Well, it's the higher government idea, isn't it? It's the normal conspiracy theory idea that we are being lied to, that we're not allowed to know the truth. Now, throughout research and throughout looking through this, there's a lot of people that think that NASA are making up aliens because they don't want us to know that the world is flat. Now, that obviously puts the absolute kibosh on it, because why would they be up there spending trillions of dollars watching the world and circling the planet to find out? Now, the other side is that Google used CGI imagery to make the world spherical. Now, I don't mean to put this in such a blunt term, but why would they go that length and make those CGI images to just cancel out the thought of a small select few? In the grand scheme of things, there's 8 billion people on this planet, and you probably take up about 3%, if that, with the Flat Earth Society. Why, oh why, would NASA, Google, and so many other big industries make up this lie to just lie to you? I am. This is the part where it kind of goes to idiocracy, to the idea that if you're going to think about things like this, please think about it in a rational sort of terminology. Think about it in a way that could be almost classed as scientific. Now, we've seen people in the past go out there and be taken down by the Catholic Church because they are trying to prove God, but unintentionally going and disproving God. And this is exactly the same thing. Look at it like that. We're not going out there to necessarily disprove that the world is flat. We're going out to prove it. And anything else that comes from it is truth and scientific fact. Now, again, why would these big companies go out there and spend all of this trillions and trillions of dollars over the years to just turn around to a select few and say, no, the world is round. Don't think about anything other than that. The world is round. Now, the be-all and end-all of this is I am all for scientific fact. And like I said, if someone were to turn around to me, I said it at the beginning of the episode, and say, scientific fact, here it is, the world is flat. Fine, right? It's done. We're over that. It's something that we get used to. But there is a lot of evidence that backs up the world being spherical, whether it be sensors, whether it be science, whether it be anything else. Now, we are all free to believe in what we believe in and what we think we believe in. It's our beliefs, and it's a God-given right that we're allowed to believe in our beliefs. But when there is so much scientific evidence and so much scientific fact that backs up the idea, don't you think it's time to change? Now, I've seen a lot of comment sections in a lot of videos where they are flat earthers who have come round to the thinking of the normal person. And yes, I use normal. But your beliefs are your beliefs. If you can truly be open-minded in this world, you can believe in anything, or you can believe in nothing. I would really like to know what your thoughts are on flat Earth, so please let me know down in the comments, because for me, it is honestly, irrefutably a round Earth. And with that, that's the end of today's episode. I want to say thank you to everyone who's listened to it. If you are interested in flat Earth or anything like that, please do me a favour and let me know down in the comments. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a like and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I will be back with another episode of It's All a Little Weird.